Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Quick turnaround. I was only here yesterday, I know, but back to look ahead to Newcastle United's trip in the FA Cup to Blackburn Rovers on Tuesday night at Ewood Park. Really tough game, really crucial game. Eddie Howe's done his pre-match news conference and we'll get straight into it. It was a really poor performance, obviously, on Saturday. If you haven't looked at my review from that game which came out yesterday, please go back and see that. Howe didn't pull any punches talking about the game. He was very honest, didn't make any excuses. Said that for the first time this season, he couldn't explain the performance, and I see what he means by that. I think in previous games when things have gone that poorly, you can say fatigue was a factor. We've talked about, you can mention the number of games, you can mention the number of injuries, but it was a really fit squad. There's only senior players in the squad really, which for the first time it's happened in a while, I think. Certainly not in the dark days of December when there was only 11 fit players from the first team that you would expect to be in the squad if everyone's fit. Now, a response needed when they face Blackburn, not just in terms of performance, but I think the result is absolutely crucial. If they don't win the game and go through, then the season really looks very difficult to salvage. It's hard to say that it would be over because Newcastle need to go into the rest of the season and try and qualify for Europe in the league. That's far from out of the reach, especially after Liverpool won the Carabao Cup yesterday, so that 7th spot, 8th spot potentially could be European place if the 5th spot is a Champions League spot as well. So there could be 8 European teams from England next season. Newcastle got to be one of them, really, you would expect, for there to be any sense of progress and not regression. I think it's one thing to say that last season was overachieving, but to leave this season without Europe, although it might be better for next season in terms of fewer games and finding yourself in a position to challenge further up the table like Spurs have this season. For the sense of progress and continuation of that to happen, I think Newcastle really need to qualify for Europe. The FA Cup obviously is one way of doing that, which is a huge thing that Newcastle now still have to go for. Not just, but I don't think Newcastle fans are looking at the FA Cup thinking it's the way into Europe. I think Newcastle fans are looking at the FA Cup and thinking it's the way to end the trophy drought that's gone on since 1969, and if Eddie Howe can do that, then he'll cement what is already a very strong position with Newcastle fans, and people have talked about him in the same realms as Keegan and Robson. Having said that, there are more questions about his future after this, given this season. It's been a difficult one, and what I would say after the Arsenal game, coming into this Blackburn game, the sort of idea that talking about his future being preposterous, which was kind of the feeling that was around when I did my Q&A video in December, and I sort of talked about it being a very far-fetched thing that Howe might be under pressure at any point back then. I think that's gone. I think if Eddie Howe doesn't win tomorrow, it doesn't mean that he's going to go. It doesn't mean that he will even be under pressure from the owners, because I think that position hasn't really changed. But what I do think is that the questions will get louder and the discourse will change, and the sort of air of invincibility or air of untouchability, if you like, that he's got with a lot of the fan base will start to dissipate. It won't happen overnight. It'll just be a slippery slope. And I think I said to somebody on Saturday, if this doesn't change and Newcastle don't pick up from this point, then we might look back at this point and think, if Eddie Howe does go, this was the point it all went wrong. Whenever people started wondering whether Eddie Howe could be under pressure back in December, I think there was a point where there were big fixtures coming around. Fitness was still a problem with teams. Fatigue was still a problem. That there was a sense that they would turn a corner in terms of the number of games that they were playing, in terms of the number of opportunities to turn it round. And those things haven't happened since then. There's been the result against Luton at home, there's been the result against Bournemouth at home, there's been the results at Liverpool, there's been the results at Arsenal, which again, there's mitigating circumstances in terms of beating those teams, Liverpool particularly and Arsenal away. And because Eddie Howe's come out today and said that he doesn't really feel like a change of system is on the card, I think that's quite worrying, because the system, as I've mentioned so many times on this channel, the system has become the problem for me. A lot of the problems this season have been because the system is not working. And the system is not working because the personnel aren't there. Willock is coming back. That was, I said on Sunday's video, Willock coming back and scoring that goal in the way he did, and changing the structure and changing the plan of Newcastle's attack and giving it a plan of attack actually was massive. But The system can't live and die with Joe Willock because he's had 12 months of injury problems, and there's no guarantee that he'll start on Tuesday at Blackburn. There's no guarantee that Alexander Isak will start against Blackburn because he's only just coming back. Sven Botman is, Eddie Howe says he's fine, but he's still returning from that injury with his knee in terms of finding his best form. These players have to be reliant on for that system to work, and if they're not performing for whatever reason, be it injuries, be it form, then there's a problem there, and that needs to, I think, needs to lead to a change of system. Blackburn themselves, having seen John Dahl Thompson depart as manager and brought in John Eustace, they have struggled this season at times, but they're a decent championship outfit. This will be a tough game. Ewood Park's a classic old ground. 7,000 Geordies going to be there. It's got the possibility of being a huge occasion, but it has to be really to save Newcastle's season in terms of big chance of progress. Because if Newcastle finish 7th and win the FA Cup, then I think that's actually, in the circumstances, you could count that as a step forward in the project from where Newcastle are. If they go out of the FA Cup and finish 8th or 9th, there's probably questions there in terms of that, and maybe big questions will be asked in terms of the structure. Obviously, the Dan Ashworth situation, in terms of him going, has been resolved, but his replacement might mean a different direction. There could be big changes on the playing staff. If they don't win tomorrow, then the size of the changes might be a lot bigger than if they do and continue to go on and at least get to Wembley for the semi-final or final and possibly even win it. That all really dictates how this summer's going to go. So this game is absolutely crucial. And there's one other line from the press conference that I thought was really interesting, was that Joelinton's contract is a priority for Eddie Howe, which is good to hear, I think, because there's been a lot of talk about whether he's going to stay, whether he's going to go. He's absolutely crucial, as we're seeing with him not playing, how crucial he is. He's vital to the way Newcastle play. He's vital to the character of the dressing room, and Eddie Howe's talked about losing that nastiness. Couldn't really say anything beyond the character of the team comes from the players, and I think he was alluding to the fact that Joelinton's missing, and that robustness, that physicality, that height, that aggressiveness that he has in terms of his personality and the way he plays is crucial to Newcastle. If they lose him in the summer in terms of style, he might be a great player in terms of FFP situation with his contract running out in a year. Him being 28, you could probably get a good fee for him in the summer. You'd have to do a lot to fill the gap that he would leave in terms of everything. So I think he is right that Eddie Howe has made the case that Joelinton's contract is a priority, and that will be led at the moment by the owners that are in place, plus Darren Eales. So that's Mirdad Gadusi, and Amanda Staveley and Darren Eales. So we'll see about Joelinton's contract and Joelinton's future going forward, but absolutely massive game for Newcastle tomorrow. Couldn't be any bigger, in my opinion, in terms of where the crossroads of this season. I think the Newcastle should be confident of a victory. They should be confident that they can come out on top if they play a strong team. Whether they can do that with so many key players, sort of in terms of form and fitness under questions, we'll see. But absolutely huge game for Newcastle. Thank you very much for joining me again. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.